Rare says goodbye to their big boss as he becomes the new Xbox Games Studio head. We have some more information here on the PlayStation and Sony attempted acquisition of Katakawa. What's going on with that? How long have they been doing it? Apparently, this is something that has been in the talks for a while, but there is just one thing here holding it back. PlayStation. They continue to find sales somehow for the PS2 as Nintendo is on the heels to become the best-selling console of all time. I don't know how they're finding these sales, but all of a sudden they are. And the Xbox Series X is beating the PlayStation 5 Pro, which you would think that's impossible. This is a $700 console. It's more powerful. How is this happening? We'll talk about all that plus more, but before we continue, if you do enjoy daily gaming news and content, make sure to hit the subscribe, share the video, all of that great stuff, and let's jump into the news. As we know, there is a new Xbox Games Studios head, and that is going to be Craig Duncan, previously at Rare. Rare put out this tweet yesterday saying, today we're celebrating Gamer Boss, which is Craig Duncan's X account, tenure at Rare Ltd. After 13 years and 10 months, our head honcho recently started a new role as head of Xbox Game Studios, and we'll see plenty of him, but he'll miss out on daily cake. Thanks for everything, Craig. From all of us, you rock. So this is a big change here at Xbox. Obviously, Alan Hartman was there previous to him. He went out and he retired, and they have to replace that role. And now it is Craig Duncan, who, as we know, was the head at Rare with their major success of Sea of Thieves, which is probably one of the reasons why they did ended up promoting him. Yes, Rare hasn't been putting out games fast and furiously, but they were able to take a brand new IP and they were able to turn it into a massive success across the board, even on the PlayStation 5 with its recent release there. And with the way that the industry is going, being able to have those multiplayer games as a service, long games that have years and years of people playing it for in great numbers, that's something you need to have, and it's very important to get those games to do well. We've seen other companies try to do this and just absolutely fail. I mean, you just take a look at Xbox's competitor PlayStation with Concord and the $400 million failure that they had with that, which was something that they desperately do need in their portfolio, which is a games as a service multiplayer title to help supplement their major third-person action adventure cinematic first-party game. So I feel like that's probably one of the reasons why he did get this promotion, and we'll see how he does with handling all of the Xbox Game Studios. It will be interesting to see if anything really changes or if he's just kind of here continuing what was already put in place. I mean, Xbox has such a strong first-party lineup right now with all the studios that they do have. Unless they all just end up flopping, it's kind of hard to miss. I mean, not every game is going to be perfect. Not every game is going to be a 10 out of 10, but you're going to have lots of games coming out where you're going to have some that get better reviews than others. I think it will just overall balance it out. And the other thing is obviously the cadence of releases. How is he going to handle that with Xbox Game Pass? You need to have first-party games launching continuously to just generate that hype for the service. We really saw a lot crammed in here at the end of the year with Microsoft Flight Simulator. You have Call of Duty Black Ops 6 that launched at the end of October, and then you have Indiana Jones coming out in December. So a lot of games crammed into a couple of months. And I like to see just continuous first-party games released throughout the year and no real gaps. So he's going to obviously have a role to play in all of that. So we'll see how Craig Duncan does. But now he is gone from Rare. And we'll see what happens here with Everwild, because everyone still wants to see Everwild. And maybe we will see some gameplay of it at the 2025 Xbox Games Showcase. So let's talk about Katakawa and Sony, because Katakawa and Sony, we know that they are in discussions here for a purchase, and there's nothing really that has come out in terms of it happening yet, other than they're going to look at it and then move forward and let people know if anything changes. But apparently this is something that has been happening for a while now. So they say Sony and Katakawa have talked purchase in the past. This is according to a new report about Sony and Katakawa discussing the partnership for years. Now, this is since Sony gave their letter of intent to Katakawa and basically saying that they want to purchase it. They're going to get anime from that. They would get a lot of From Software stake if they were to get Katakawa. And this is what Bloomberg is saying in terms of Sony and Katakawa, the talks, the acquisition, and how long this has actually been going. They say they've been testing the waters for a potential combination for years. But the issue here that is arising and why it hasn't happened yet is the degree of commitment. The report states Katakawa wants Sony to acquire them completely or not purchase anything at all. And Sony only wants ownership of assets related to anime and video games. which would help build their IP portfolio. And I mean, that's exactly what a lot of people thought when they did see this, was it's an anime and it's a video gameplay, and they probably don't want a lot of the other stuff in there. So this all does make sense. And the group, they say, has several game developers under its banner, including heavy hitters like From Software, Spike Chunsoft, Gotcha Games, and more. So right now, that's probably what they are discussing. Will there be a price that is reasonable here for Sony to be like, okay, we will take everything that you have, not just the IPs and the assets that we want with this deal? And if that does end up happening, then I think you will see this purchase and this acquisition occur, which for Sony on their end, in terms of video games specifically, they are getting some heavy hitters. I mean, From Software, if you're a PlayStation fan and you're looking at acquisitions, that would be a major win, because they're a massive developer with great games, and one of the biggest games we've ever seen, which is Elden Ring, one of the most popular ones out there, which took the gaming world by storm. And in fact, their DLC is even nominated here for a Game of the Year at the Game Awards itself. Now, if you're an Xbox fan, I don't think this is going to mean you're not going to be able to play From Software's games. I don't think that Sony acquiring Kadokawa and getting From Software, that they are going to take their games off of the Xbox platform. I just do not see it happening. This is very similar to when Xbox purchased ABK, and they're still putting the ABK games on the PlayStation platform. It makes no sense to cut off such a large stream of revenue. And I would be very surprised if they did end up doing that. And we do have some more information here from the Bloomberg article here about Sony's pursuit of this acquisition. And they say Sony, a fellow shareholder in From Software, would secure its grip over that prize asset by also gobbling up Kadokawa's share. And while it's unlikely that Sony would rush to make those games exclusive to PlayStation, Miyazaki's works are reliable earners and ripe for expansion into different genres of entertainment. So that's what that part says here. So I do not see it happening. It would be very surprising if they were to get this acquisition and then just take every single game off of the other platforms and keep them locked and just cut off a huge revenue stream. But it does not matter to PlayStation whether or not these games are exclusive. They probably couldn't care less if Xbox gamers actually get to play the next From Software game if they own From Software, because then they would just be making all that money off of Xbox gamers to reinvest it into the PlayStation platform, which is what Xbox says right now with games like Call of Duty. So this is where we are right now. It is the expansion of the industry to more multi-platform strategies. You're seeing PlayStation, you're seeing Xbox do it, and will Nintendo do more of it? I feel like maybe at some point in the future when their games do cost more to develop. Now, the other thing PlayStation here is touting is the PS2 being the best-selling console of all time. We know the Nintendo Switch is right on the heels of it to surpass it. And interestingly enough, PlayStation and the PS2 are still finding sales out there, pushing that number up just a couple more million units to make that gap between the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 2 wider, which will, I think, make it harder for them to catch. So are these real? I guess that is the question. How are they coming up with these numbers of the PS2, and who's still buying the PS2? And if no one's buying it today, why weren't these numbers reported previously? These are all questions, but they say here on Tuesday, Sony launched its 30th anniversary website for PlayStation. The website goes through the console's history from the original PlayStation to the current PlayStation 5. It also gave confirmation of an updated number on the best-selling video game console of all time, the PS2. And according to Sony, the PS2 has sold over 160 million units since its launch in 2000. Prior to this update, the last known sales totals for the console was 158.3 million units. And I believe that even Jim Ryan, before he left, had updated that number to be higher than it was as Nintendo was approaching. They do mention here that the PS2 sits just 6 million ahead of the 154 million units of the Nintendo DS, and the Nintendo Switch has sold 146 million units. So will they be able to catch that 160? That is becoming, I think, less likely now. It's a lot of more million units to sell as the Nintendo Switch sales are getting less and less, and they are falling. And the Nintendo Switch 2 is on the horizon, so it may be harder for them. I just find it super interesting here that PlayStation all of a sudden is finding new sales for the PS2 so they can stay out on top. So I would love to see where these sales are coming from, how all of a sudden it is at 160 million PS2 units. That's something I would love more information on. Now, the other console right now for the PlayStation is the PS5 Pro. We're starting to see those analysis of it. And as I've mentioned on my channel more than once here. I think the PS5 Pro is a beta test for PSSR. I think that is the main thing for it. It is machine learning. It is AI. The more information that the PSSR can get, the better it will be for the future. And the PS6 is going to definitely have that. So I feel like they pushed this out here so that it can start building up that information. Developers can utilize it starting now and then really go full throttle on PSSR with the PlayStation 6. And we are seeing that beta test in action with many games on the PS5 Pro just not, I think, being as good as people would have expected. This one is an interesting one. It is backwards compatibility. Backwards compatibility sometimes is handled differently. We saw this even early on in this generation where there were some weird things happening between the Series X and the PlayStation 5. I don't think this means the PS5 Pro is a bad console. I just think as of right now, that jump between the base console and the mid-gen refresh, not as big as a lot of people were hoping. And it is still early on where developers, I think, are trying to utilize everything available on the PS5 Pro as well as possible. But this is from the DF Direct Weekly, Digital Foundry, and they are looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the PSSR, and one of them here has to do with Assassin's Creed Syndicate at 60 frames per second. And here is what they say. It is very, very close here to the Xbox Series X, which I think a lot of people with a PS5 Pro spending $700 would have expected more of it. Here's what they say.
In the first cutscene here, we're seeing that the PlayStation 5 version running that old PS4 code is the least performant of the lot, right? Interesting stuff. The Pro, on the other hand, is kind of battling it out with Xbox Series X for the smoothest performance overall. Only applies to cutscenes for the most part here. So to a certain extent, it's academic. But even so, some interesting stuff here because, you know, there's basically the Series X and the Pro trading blows here, surprisingly enough. This second cutscene, which is going to surprise many people here because it's not really the narrative you expect. But remember, this is using back compat. The Series X actually runs faster than the Pro.
So there you have it. I mean, the PS5 Pro is battling it out with the Series X with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which again, a backwards compatible game. But at even a certain point, the Series X is performing better than it, which is kind of head scratching. You're thinking if you're picking up a PS5 Pro, you're spending that type of money, you want to jump in and you want every game to be significantly better than the base consoles and the Series X and the PlayStation 5. Just not the case. And it's not surprising to me. I think it will take a while for this thing to get going to its full potential, just like with this generation from 2020 until now. It has been taking a while, and we still, a lot of people think haven't even seen the full potential of the PS5 or the Series X. So with the PS5 Pro, it won't be any different. It's not going to be this just massive win right off of the bat. And PSSR, as I've said, beta test, in my opinion, the developers are going to use it, may not use it well, as we've seen a lot of issues with the PSSR already. And then when the PS6 comes out, that's where it's going to be big. And it will, at that point as well, be competing with Xbox and their AI upscaling, and we'll see which one does win at the end of the day. All right, couple more things here. We have 2K. They are shutting down their launcher, their PC launcher here. They just announced a complete sunset of their launcher, removing it from every Epic Game Store and Steam game. So if you're somebody who was annoyed or didn't like the 2K launcher, that thing is now going away. They say the sunset of the 2K launcher was announced on November 18th. However, a follow-up update on November 25th led to its complete removal from Steam, and the 2K launcher beta created for Sid Meier's Civilization 5 was also removed. And players will see that their 2K launcher folder has been turned into a text file called 2K launcher remove.tx, which can now be deleted. So no more 2K launcher if you're wondering what is happening to that. We've got some more information here for Cyberpunk 2077 as well as the next Witcher game. Cyberpunk 2077, pretty crazy here, especially with the way that this game did start at release. Across 30 million copies sold. And with that, The Witcher 4, the next Witcher game, is in full production. So if you're a fan of that, I mean, I'm excited to see exactly what this next Witcher game is. Going to be, I think, an incredible RPG. They do confirm here, saying, I'm proud to confirm that several weeks ago, the Polaris team wrapped up pre-production and moved on to full-scale production, the most intensive phase of development. We are very pleased with our progress on this project, and I wish to thank the team for its dedication. So we're going to see more about this next Witcher game soon. maybe next year we'll get our first look at it, or a first piece of information on it, just really exactly what this is, and we get some screenshots, maybe some gameplay, all of that type of stuff. So very excited for that, for whatever this next Witcher game is going to end up being like. And then finally, we've got a couple more things here. We have an exclusive from Insider Gaming saying there's details on a new Animal Crossing inspired game called Altera, which would kind of, I think, be a smart move with how big Animal Crossing is. I mean, you've seen Ubisoft try to break in to these different types of subgenres. For example, Brawlhalla with like trying to break in against Super Smash Brothers, and that has done very, very well. But now you have this here with Animal Crossing gameplay. A lot of people love these styles of games, and I think they could do some damage here in the genre if they do it properly. But it says here, Altera is described as the Animal Crossing inspired social sim that will see players inhabit a home island and that will consist of interactable NPCs named Matterlings. The sources said that the players will be able to leave their home island and go to other worlds, which would consist of different biomes, different types of Matterlings, enemies, materials, and more, where they'll also be able to interact with other players. And it said the game is somewhat similar to Minecraft's building mechanics, allowing players to build what they want with gathered materials. For example, if a player would like to create something out of snow and ice, they'd have to travel to an ice world inhabited by snow ice Matterlings. So that's pretty cool. And then here are some images, I guess, of kind of what this game is going to look like and just the concept art behind it. So Ubisoft, basically, the news here is they're working on an Animal Crossing inspired game. If you're a fan of those styles of games, you're probably going to want to keep your eye out for this one just to kind of see exactly how it does end up doing. But that's it for me. I'm going to end the video there, guys. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.